Now we come to the portion of our service before we get into our Bible study that we talk about end times news and prophecy as we do each week. And we do want to welcome the online church and the subscribers around the world. Thank you for joining us and partnering with us and making an opportunity for people to hear the gospel and to hear the teaching of God's Word. There's so many headlines. Again, each week it's so hard to pick what are some of the main things that we need to address. And again, we're just barely even scratching the surface here. An email that came out on Friday from Canberra Declaration, it was kind of that reminder, the United Nations, as we talked about what took place a couple months ago with this whole Agenda 20, that all gets implemented on January 1st. So this whole global plan that every country around the world has to submit to is going to start in 32 days from now. Part of this big agenda that's going to happen starts tomorrow on the 30th in Paris with this whole climate change, which we know is one of the big global initiatives, which is global number 13, to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. So what this is going to do is going to have more rules and regulations, more government control, which is the whole idea, and more taxes, because taxes obviously help the climate change, right? But what are we seeing happening with businesses? They're being hit with more taxes. People are being hit with taxes. It doesn't help the climate, does it? It affects the economy, and this is part of the government control. Anyways, on another issue, it's a moral issue, it's a health issue. The World Health Organization, and this came out of the Independent on Friday, said the HIV in Europe is at an all-time high. And so this is, they've seen 142,000 new infections of HIV this year, which causes AIDS, so it's the highest number in 1 year ever. Of course, the rates of transmission due to heterosexual intercourse, careless use of unclean drug paraphernalia, and of course, the gay sex between men has been the main source of the spread of the disease. Speaking of the rise of infections, the World Organization director said, despite all the efforts to fight HIV this year, the European region has reached over 142,000 new HIV infections, the highest number ever. It's a serious concern. And again, with the whole migrants traveling through Europe right now with the whole so-called refugee crisis, and so it's spreading even faster. But he also blamed the social exclusion felt by migrants, which made them more likely to engage in risky behavior. So it's an excuse for people not taking responsibility for their lives. And a third of all new HIV diagnoses in Europe are migrants and non-native Europeans, only despite the accounting for the fraction of the population. To help spread the potential fatal virus, the director called Europeans to offer free HIV treatment to all, regardless of their origin or nationality. And he says this is also the safest way to protect the resident population from HIV. The answer to that is no, it does not. Abstinence is one of the keys to stopping the spread of HIV, stopping drug use, and stopping the agenda of the homosexual gay lifestyle and promoting it. That is what's going to stop this whole notion of the HIV virus. On a similar note with the issue that's here in Australia, there's this report that came out of the Daily Signal and also the Christian Headlines on Friday about the Australian bishops are facing a lawsuit for the distribution of traditional marriage booklet. So the Australian bishops are under the fire for the members of the country's gay political movement because they distributed this booklet. And this booklet came out of the Charisma News entitled, "Don't Mess with Marriage," and it was distributed nationwide. The Archbishop of Hobart sent home this booklet to the parents in the Catholic school, which they have every right to do so if it's part of their school system there at the Catholic Church in Tasmania. The Daily Signal writer, Lyle Shelton, said that the booklet even maintained a respectful tone toward the individuals with same-sex attraction. So what this "Don't Mess with Marriage" says about traditional marriage, it talks about again, in the physical, between a man and a woman. Physical, spiritual, psychological, sexual differences, and how they're meant for each other. The union makes them whole, and through their union, one in flesh together, they beget children who are flesh of our flesh, which is natural and normal, right? You see that in nature, you see that biologically. The homosexuals, again, they can't reproduce because it's an unnormal lifestyle. They recruit and they adopt. That is how they get their families. And so what happens is as the family goes, so goes the nation. So the destruction of the family and traditional marriages, the distribution of Don't Mess with Marriage, outraged by Rodney Crome, who's the leader of the Australian gay marriage political movement. And he said that what they're doing here is turning the children into carriers of prejudice. So that's one of the reasons why they're so enraged with this. No, you're just informing people of the truth, There's nothing to be afraid of when the truth comes out. Also, it's kind of funny when you think about this title. When you want to stop terrorism, be nice to Muslims. This is a report that came out of the Washington Post on Tuesday. And so a warmer embrace would stop homegrown terrorism. So that's their solution. So again, with this whole migrant debate going on, getting more contentious as the weeks go on, and the Syrian passport found at the Paris attack, and a lot of politicians are expressing their views, hey, we just need to shut the door. A lot of it's being exposed, as we said before. It's not just these migrants, refugees, but they're jihadists to the whole Islamic invasion. But a Czech independent TV exposes that many refugees are jihadists, and they have this whole expose on it. Poland's turning back refugees. More than half of the American governors are saying, hey, we don't want it. And there's where the president's saying, no, the states have no choice in this. They're going to shove it down the states' throats. But there's this massive push, a PR, underway to change the American mindset on Syrian Muslim resettlements. And this came out of a web blog, refugeesettlementwatch.press.com, that had that particular article. But again, the fearful reactions across the world, because you're seeing what's happening in Europe, is going to happen in the United States and Australia and Canada and other parts of the world. And by the way, according to Department of Homeland Security, the United States is staggering 680,000, wrap your mind around that number, of Muslim migrants under Obama. Since he came into office in 2009 to 2013, that's more than the population of Washington, D.C. that has come in to the United States from these different Muslim countries. Anyways, the report went on to say that such intolerance to make Muslims feel that they don't belong in Europe or United States. The research forthcoming that Behavioral Science and Policy, in partnership with the World Organization for Resource and Development and Education, shows that making Muslims feel this way, like you're not wanted here, can fuel support for radical movements. In other words, many of the Western policies aimed to prevent terrorism may actually be causing it. No, it's not. It's actually the teaching of Islam. In fact, over 600 or 164 verses in the Quran, 61% of the Hadith talks about jihad. For example, here's one verse in the Quran, and this is paraphrased because I don't speak Arabic, but this is one of the paraphrases of Quran 9:5. It says, "Fight and kill the disbelievers, the unbelievers." They called kofars. Whenever you find them, take them captive, harass them, lie in wait, and ambush them using every wage of war. This is part of their teaching. So there's no. That's what a good Muslim does. And I'm not saying that Muslims are good in that sense. I'm just saying that's what a true Muslim is, following the Quran. That is the teaching of the Quran. And the teaching of Islam is to wage war, to have world domination. On another issue, and this is dealing with journalism, because it's hard to find the truth in the mainstream media. This report came out of the New York Post, but it was kind of going against what the New York Times. So it's nice to have other news media calling out other news sources and what's true and what's not true. So this New York Post said that how the New York Times whitewashes Palestinian terror, because you start to see how twisted some of these mainstream media is. Here's an example of it. Just as last week began, this last week ended with more Palestinian attacks, stabbing attacks against Israeli Jews, more dead. Yet this information might surprise some of the readers at the New York Times. On Sunday, for example, a 20-year-old Israeli woman was stabbed to death. Another Israeli rammed a car and attacked with a knife. A third assaulted by a knife-wielding teen affiliated with the Islamic Jihad terror group. All three assailants were killed in the course of their attack. But the headline in the Times story about the Sunday's attacks did away with the cause and effect. They said that one Israeli and 3 Palestinians killed in the attack in the West Bank. Again, the headline was later changed online, but the printed press, it was already too late. And again, the West Bank faces a spat of assaults that kill 4. The West Bank had nothing to do with it. They weren't facing any of it. It was the Israelis that were facing the assault. So you start to see how they're trying to set up Israel's the bad people, the Jews are the bad people. And then you have the Palestinian president, Abbas, who recently called on his people to protect Jerusalem's holy sites from the filthy feet of the Israeli Jews and the terrorists to heed the call to take the streets and thrust the knives into any Israeli encounter. And other stabbing attacks included an 80-year-old woman and a 13-year-old boy riding his bike the other week. So even this incitement, even this terror is no match for the creativity of the New York Times. And there's other news agencies that have similar type reporting. They twist the facts to get people to believe something else that is not there. CNN, for example, wipes Israel off the face of the map. This report on Thursday on the Jerusalem Post, just like the Air France earlier this year didn't have Israel on the map in their flight program as they're flying over. They didn't have Israel listed there. But CNN article dropped Israel's name from the map, and they put Palestinian over the map of Israel. Again, CNN replaced that story's photo, one showing the scene of destruction from a Syrian city. Readers, again, they saw the stuff beforehand. They responded in outrage, and if you're going to put a map of the Middle East, at least put one that's accurate. Another responder said, why is my country erased from this map? Media watchdog group Honest Reporting said that CNN's choice of illustration was completely unacceptable. So, and again, when people are calling the nation of Israel into question for its existence, this is not helping inflame that conversation. Even here, 40 minutes away, out of the Age and also the Ynet News, some of you probably saw this incident happen outside of a synagogue, a Jews attack in Israel, where this individual who was intoxicated. All it takes is one individual to create a problem, especially in this area. But this, on Thursday, an intoxicated man slugged insults at the group and attempted to attack one. Claims that he was Aboriginal, and he could be heard shouting about Allah and says, do you think you can rule this land? So obviously the guy's ignorant, doesn't know religion, and of course he's drunk. The incident was captured on camera. You can see it on Facebook or YouTube and other news items. But he shows that the worshipers, again, one of the key leaders in the Jewish community, taking control of the man. He's asking the man to speak nicely, and the man responds by trying to attack him. They subdue him, put him onto the ground until the police came. And according to the police, said that the clash with the worshipers, after apparently they caught him stealing a child's scooter in front of the building. So that's what kind of escalated this whole incident. He was later arrested and charged with theft, assault, and damaging property. But out of the mouth, the abundance of the heart speaks. And you see this anti-Israeli, anti-Jew rhetoric, and it's getting worse and worse around the world. And it's here in Australia. It's here in our backyard, just 40 minutes away from here. We're starting to see more of that happening. Another issue that is starting to escalate, of course, in Syria, where not only the Turkey fighter jets fought down the Russian bombers, but now we're starting to see the Iranian fighter jets coming into Syria alongside the Russian bombers. The F-14 with the Iranians are flying next to the MiG-29 fighter jets across the skies there. Not so much are they flying in there, but they're 150 kilometers away from the Israeli border. That's from here to Ballarat. From here to the airport's only 60, 70 kilometers away. So you're starting to see how close this escalation of potential war is going to happen and the invasion of Israel, which we know will happen at some point, whereas Psalm 83 and Ezekiel 38 and 39 will come to pass. And then on a similar note, as we finish on a positive note, as we mentioned again with the global outreach and the impact that we're seeing with technology, how millions of people are coming to Christ. But there was a video game that won 16,000 people to Christ. And this came out of the CBN News and also Charisma News, where a Christian company called Lightside are using popular gaming to win people to Christ. That's awesome to hear and see. He said, through the course of making these games, we've had over 16,000 people come to Christ in the partnership with the Billy Graham Association. So at Lightside, we want to be a light in darkness to the 60 million people who are playing games. That's a lot of people playing games online or through their phones and stuff. The new program, again, which created a lot more interest, was called Stained Glass, which is this game. And that's the latest game that became number one in Christian gaming apps. And that's kind of this game where people matching these pieces to merge the colors together and encounter these different kind of obstacles and overcome to create this beautiful stained glass window. And once those stained glass are formed, then out of the window comes a character in the Bible, and they kind of share their story. So he said that he found people not only enjoying the games, but also the change in their hearts. So I think it's cool to hear and to read about how people come to Christ regardless of how it happens. It's still an awesome miracle and testimony. And technology is such an important tool that we have in these last days, an effective tool for sharing the gospel as quickly as possible, getting the Word of God out there. Even just on our YouTube channel, since we started it in February, we've seen over 235,000 plus views. Right now, we're well over 2,700 plus subscribers all over the world. So it's amazing to use the technology that we have. While time is short, we need to get the gospel out there before the rapture happens. We need to tell as many people before it's too late, before they get left behind. Amen? And that concludes today's update.